Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the class in Kohelet, sometimes Mishlei, sometimes Kohelet or Ecclesiastes. So you should have in front of you on your screen, you should have a page from chapter 10. And I would like you to take a look at number 19. Okay, first of all, would you please tell me who's there? Is Susan here today? No? Okay. Jeffrey, are you here? Can you speak up? I want to hear you.
Yes, I'm here.
Whoa, I can hear you.
Okay.
That's great. And I'm sorry, who else is here?
Robert Goodman.
Say it again.
Robert Goodman is here.
Robert Goodman, that's a good thing. And below, and who's else?
Jack Wolf.
Oh, Jack. Oh my goodness, you look like one of our 7 righteous people. I didn't recognize you. Okay, Jack, your responsibility is to ask some intelligent questions, all right? If
I'll
you
do the best I can with the limited resources I have.
remember, there's a reason why you were called Hamishi. I believe Jewish history says you were the first person in history to drink all 5 cups of wine at the same time. And thus the name Hamishi. Okay, good to see you, happy people. Let's take a look. I need some good questions, all right? Intelligent questions, questions that I probably don't know the answer to, but I still need the questions. Okay, so I'm looking now in Kohelet or Ecclesiastes, and we're going to read a verse and see how much sense it makes. Number 19. Okay, everyone looking at number 19? A feast is made for laughter, and wine gladdens life, but money answers everything. This is the writing of King Solomon, one of the richest men in the world. And what do you think he means by money answers everything? In Hebrew, kesef ya'aneh et hakol. What in the world could he mean by that? What could he be teaching us with money answers everything? Anybody have any ideas? Any lucky guesses?
I don't know, but I certainly don't think money answers everything.
It doesn't answer everything. Okay, does it answer most things?
These days, I'm not sure.
Okay, and well, we're going to find out. He may have known more than we were willing to give him credit for. Jack, any observations?
The only observation I have is that the money answers many things, but the problems that you have, they're problems that you have that money can't fix, and they're the real problems that you have.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Okay. All right. So the point that there are many ways to understand what he's saying, but one of them is as follows: when you're Jewish and you spend thousands of years in exile, sometimes you want to get away from the craziness of the government that's persecuting you, and one of the best solutions was bribery, called money. Money answers everything. You're right, it's not everything, but he's suggesting that having money does open doors for you that would not be open otherwise. Okay, as I said, think about Jewish history through thousands of years of dealing with oppressive rulers and how we had to deal with them. And sometimes we had to just buy our freedom so they wouldn't confiscate everything we owned. Okay, that's one way to look at it. And another way to look at it is that if you look at the history of America, the people who made up the Supreme Court for the first few hundred years, and the people who ran the Senate were highly educated people who went to the best universities in America. Okay, there are exceptions, of course, but that may explain why they were so well educated. Their parents had enough money to send them to Harvard and Yale and Princeton, and as a result, they were able to have good connections that would get them into high places in society. So money does answer many things. Okay, yes. Observations? Go ahead.
Yeah. Then you have someone like Cruz and Hawley who have lots of education but aren't using it correctly. So money may bring you everything, but if intelligence may bring you everything, but if you don't use it correctly, it doesn't pay.
But
Doesn't
they
mean
are
it.
doing well in terms of getting a recognition, right? People like Cruz and many other people in the Senate are certainly wealthy enough to get to make their mark on society, for better or for worse. And I think we'll find out that that people who wanted to be educated very often needed money to pay for their education. I'm going to remind you of a famous story that you all know about in the Talmud. It's a story about a great man named Hillel who left Babylonia to study in Jerusalem. And when he left Babylonia, he was cut off by his family. His brother refused to support him at that point because he wanted Hillel to stay in Babylonia, but Hillel had to go to Jerusalem to expand his knowledge. So when he came to Jerusalem, there's this very famous story that he used to cut wood and use the wood to pay for admittance into the study hall. Is that correct so far, or am I exaggerating? Well, okay, assume it's correct. One day he couldn't sell his wood, and they would not admit him into the yeshiva because the money was that you paid was to pay for the janitor. The janitor said, "No, you can't come in. You don't have money." So what did poor Hillel do without money? What did he do? He couldn't get in. He could sneak in, but that's not legal. How did Hillel deal with that situation when he had no money to be admitted into the yeshiva?
Did he sit at the window, I think?
You're getting close. Anybody else? Okay. How's about he climbed up on the skylight?
Right.
Okay. In other words, it was illegal to come in without payment, and he didn't want to be illegal, but he wanted very much to benefit from the knowledge of what was going on, and he listened from above, where there was a skylight. And what he didn't notice as he was concentrating on his studies is that it started to snow. Okay, you know it does snow in Jerusalem, not every year, but when it does, it does. And Hillel passed out, and that was on a Friday when he went to be admitted. And and the next day, when his teachers or the scholars, Shammai and Avtalion, came to study in the yeshiva, they noticed that the room was very dark, and then they looked up and saw a figure on top of the roof, and they realized somebody, there was a human being, and so they went up and brought him down, and they lit a fire to warm him up and to save his life. Are you allowed to do that on Shabbos? Anybody know?
Save a life.
They lit a fire to to pull him out of it because he was unconscious from being all night on the roof. So Shmai and Avtalion, the teachers of Hillel, lit a fire and brought him back. Okay, and they said anybody who's this devoted to Torah study deserves free admittance to the yeshiva. They would cover his expenses. They did not want to lose him ever again when they saw his dedication. Okay, but you see, he would never have even gotten that far had he not had something to pay for admittance into the yeshiva. And so the point is that you need something to move forward, and money does make that difference. And I'm saying it made a big difference in terms of the way the Senate was run for hundreds of years. The people who ran America were not from the poor classes; they were from the upper classes, and this explains why even in the 1900s, the poor workers were really, they had no money; they were paid poorly, and the people who kept the big factories running, right? The millionaires of America were given special dispensation, and the poor were being hurt all the time. They were paid poorly, and they had many accidents in the factories. And maybe you're familiar with the story of in Chicago, 1906. Okay, what happened there? The terrible accidents that were happening at that time. It was just an important thing to know that you need a certain amount of money to move forward in your knowledge. Because if you don't have money, you can't get into the yeshiva or the university. So that's why many of the great rabbis advised everyone to study Torah and to work at a job, because working at a job would pay for many things that would come their way. Any questions on Money Answers Everything? Anybody? No? Well, it doesn't answer everything, but it really moves you further along in society. Okay, you make a nicer impression when you drive up in a Lexus than in a beat up old Ford. Okay, just but again,
things,
say it again.
Some things never change.
Right. Well, this is why he's recognized in the Bible as the wisest of all men. Okay, if you should have a Bible and turn to Kings 1, chapter 5, you will see a description there where God blessed young Solomon with wisdom that actually was greater than the wisdom of Moses and Abraham and Joseph, the one who saved the Jewish people during the Great Famine. This you will see in Kings 1, chapter 5. Again, you need a regular Bible. I don't know if a Chumash will have this particular information. Okay. All right, let's ready for the next part.
I just wanted to say something about the money answers a lot. I know that in Israel now, they're trying to intervene and help the Haredim, the Haredi community. A lot of them are getting more jobs, and they're trying to break that vicious cycle of just learning and relying on the Israeli government for everything. But now I hear and I read about a certain groups of people that are trying to bring some type of job earning capability for some of these people, whether it's in technology or whatever, and it's helping the Haredi community so they're not considered as a burden for the Israeli government. Right. And even some of them are even entering the army, from what I hear, because I have family in Israel in the army. They're telling me that some of the Haredim are slowly, they're coming back into part of society. And I think that it's good that their children see this, because it kind of breaks a vicious cycle, so right. that money does help to answer, they will see. It'll probably take generations, but they will see that will really help them in the end. I think, I hope.
Tell me your name.
Deborah Wilk.
Oh, Deborah Wilk. Okay, Deborah, thank you. I'm looking for people to make comments so that I'm not speaking to the wall.
It's Rabbi.
Yes.
I think also, we should do that in America also, because I get tired of as a social worker myself, I get tired of hearing people who are on welfare, on government benefits, and they're sitting and learning all day, which is fine to sit and learn, but you've got, as you were saying, you've got to have some parnassa as well, instead of depending on the government to pay your expenses, to get food stamps and Section 8 and Medicare and Medicaid and all that.
Right.
They should be working as well.
Right. Thank you for that. Very good observation. I would also.
But you know what? Excuse me. I think that it's also the responsibility of the rabbis that these people look up to.
Yes.
If they try to give them some emunah and say that they look up to the head Rebbes, whomever they are, whatever group they belong to. And I think that the Rebbe should encourage the men that this is important. Studying Torah, learning Torah is the best thing. And this is what I'm trying to do with my own life now. But I've already raised my family and I'm retired. But I feel that Zoom meeting. that it's an important thing that people realize that their Rebbe has a lot of power in some of these communities. And if they tell them it's important to go out and earn a living, maybe it'll catch on a little bit. Right, I think it's part of the Rebbe, the head Rebbes, whomever they are, that they try to help their people by even helping to get jobs for them, or in any way bettering their lives.
Very good. Thank you for that observation. Would anybody else like to weigh in? Anything else? Okay, I'd like to just point out that I noticed the majority of requests I get for tzedakah are coming uh, for on behalf of people in Israel who have very large families and do not have any real means of employment, and they want to marry off their children and pay for
Right.
their weddings when they just certainly don't have the money to do that. And in a sense, they're not doing what the Rambam would have recommended, that you should have a job before you get married. They're just getting their children married off while they're young and they don't have jobs, and somehow hope that Hashem will make good things happen. But
Well, what they do is they they want the American people who they feel have the money to, as you get on your phone, as I get on my phone all the time, almost every day. I need money. I have to marry off my daughter, or somebody is sick in the family. All right, Rahmana litzlan, but I have to make weddings, and they have to buy an apartment, and I need money, and it becomes a burden to a lot of the American people. Oh, you look at this and you say, I want to help, but it's like almost every day where this is occurrence. And I think it's not such a good idea to rely on other people to help finance a wedding or something. Or however.
That is a serious problem. That the amount of tzedakah that's required is for Israel is extensive, and the people are just not they're just not following the old practices of the Gemara or the Rambam. It says, make a living and then get married. They're getting married without making a living and hoping somehow the parents will be able to pay for the wedding, and the parents have to pay for a new apartment for the couple. And and the parents have 10 or 12 children, and how they're able to do it, if they would have the money, it wouldn't be a big problem, but they don't have the money. And that's where things are not going well in the Haredi community. Besides, as your name is Deborah, is that what you said?
Yes, okay, it is.
Deborah, good point that you made. I just read in our local newspaper that in Israel, the police are fighting it out with the Haredim because the Haredim don't want to protect themselves from the COVID. And there are so many more hospitalizations taking place in the Haredi religious community than anywhere else, because the Rebbes don't tell them to wear masks and to to protect themselves and keep a distance. And that's very sad, because it means that they need more help than they would normally need, because now that if they're sick, they need more money and that's the problem. That so King Solomon, as rich as he was, said that money really talks, and
it helps. It helps.
It does. Now there's a Jack over there. You went to a very famous high school, did you not?
Yes.
I believe I believe the people had to pay for admission. I believe it was not free to the.
Yes, it had very high tuition.
Very high tuition. It was a very good school, but to go there, you had to pay a lot of money to be admitted. And that's true today. If you go to any of these very exciting schools that promise you a great future, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, it costs a lot of money to do that, unless you're fortunate enough to get a scholarship. But don't depend on that. The schools are trying to cut back on their expenses as well. Okay, so we now know what King Solomon said about money, that it really makes a big difference. And as if you look in the Pirkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers, you'll see that there's quite a bit of reference to it's very important to combine Torah with making a living. It's called Yafet Talmud Torah im Derech Eretz, and that was the philosophy of Rabbi Hirsch. Right? You're familiar with that? Okay, let's go to the beginning of the verse and see what this is all about. It's number 19. A feast is made for laughter, and wine gladdens life. Okay, do you think King Solomon is saying it's a bad idea to have a feast or to drink wine? Is he saying it's not a good idea, or it is a good idea? Anybody feel that this is a good thing or a bad thing?
I think what he's saying is that it's good to, have of course we can't do that with COVID these days, but normal times, it's good to have a feast and enjoy your company. And
Right.
I mean, I don't drink liquor, but I guess wine gladdens life in some ways. It makes you feel good in something.
Right. Well, when they say wine, they usually mean liquor as well.
Yeah.
It means intoxicants. That the truth is that people do need a certain amount of happiness in their life, right? They need, if laughter and happiness is very important for us to go on, to continue with hope for the next day. So there has to be some joy. King Solomon is not opposed to having happiness, but he'll tell us about when we're overdoing the good thing. Okay. All right. So now that we know that it's okay to go to a party, and some synagogues are famous for their Kiddush club.
+15616.
This is wait for laughter.
Okay, so the Kiddush club is very popular in many places. I don't think any of the rabbis like them, but let's go to number 18. Let's see what King Solomon thinks about laziness. Number 18. Through slothfulness, the ceiling sags, and through idleness of the hands, the house leaks. I think he's talking about laziness. Is he saying lazy is good or lazy is bad? Anybody? Anyone?
Bad.
You say it's bad. Anyone
Bad.
agree or disagree? Anybody agree or disagree that laziness is bad?
I think it's bad. Right.
Okay, I would think you're right. The question I would ask you is this: can we control our laziness? If we're lazy, is that just who we are, or is there a way to get past being lazy? Anybody have any ideas on that?
Sounds like you're responsible for what you do.
Okay.
If you're going to be lazy, it's not good. And if you're going to be idle, it's not good.
Right.
You can't depend on other people all the time to take care of the things that control the aspects of your own life.
Very good. In fact, one of the first rules of getting up in the morning, getting up to daven, is that we should, when it's time to get up, we should get moving, because you could waste your time, you could oversleep and accomplish nothing. But the idea is, when you hear the alarm, get up to the service of Hashem, get to shul, and that makes a big difference. May I point out that here in Boca, when I get up, as soon as I walk out the door, I look at the perfectly blue skies and the greenery everywhere and flowers. I really can't wait I start davening before I get to shul. It's just too beautiful to ignore. It's just very, very enriching to be able to be in a place like this. And I think that was true in the 16th century. Somewhere in Israel, the Kabbalists used to daven outside and then go inside to finish the service. Anybody familiar with that?
My wife says it's like living in Venice here.
Where was that in Israel, that in the 16th century, where the Kabbalists used to daven outside and then go inside for the Mariv? Anybody remember?
No.
The onset of Shabbos.
Right. Okay. In which city was that?
Safat.
Safat it is, or Safat as it's called. But in other words, the Kabbalists saw the beauty of reaching out to Hashem in nature. And I think for many of us who are living here in Boca, see that that's very, very true. Okay. So we now know that we really don't have to be lazy, and In fact, the Talmud says that the people who worked in the temple, the Kohanim, were called Zerizim. They were fast of foot. They did not go slow. What they did was very important, and they acted with what I would call alacrity. That was the way that you saw their behavior, because they had many things to do with the sacrifices. So they were called Zerizim. Zerizim is a Hebrew word for people who act with alacrity. And we learned from them that Zerizim makdim lemitzvah, that when a mitzvah comes your way, you're supposed to really get moving. Don't wait. Don't delay. Get moving. And in fact, it says, right, in the Torah it says, Ushmar Temed
Matzos, it's matzos mitzvos. I
right.
read something about that. Matzos mitzvos.
Right,
To
that
do.
means to guard the matzot and the mitzvot, same spelling,
Right.
and it means that, and the rabbis say in the Talmud, when a mitzvah comes your way, don't let it become chametz.
Right. That's it.
Okay, that's the point. We should know that. Okay, so let's go to another verse. Okay, and that's going to be number 20. Okay, look at what it says in number 20. Even in your thoughts, do not curse a king, and in your bedchamber, do not curse the rich. For a bird of the skies may carry the sound, and some winged creature may betray the matter. Well, wow, that's saying a lot of important things. It means that if you have something to say against somebody, for whatever reason, be careful you're not overheard. Because, in fact, if you look in the Chumash, when Hashem says to Father Jacob, it's time for you to leave the house of Lavan and go back to Israel, it says he consults with his wives, with Rachel and Leah, and it says he meets them outdoors. He does not want to have this discussion indoors where friends or family of Laban can overhear and report what's going on. So he takes them outdoors where he can control the situation and asks for their permission to return to Israel. And they say, absolutely, we want to get out of here. Our father's been cheating us and their children. So that's one example of being careful not to be overheard. However, there's a story in the Gemara about three great rabbis that were discussing the political situation in Rome. And one of them was the famous Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, the father of Kabbalah. And he made it known to his colleagues that Rome was a terrible, terrible government, and everything they did was very selfish. They did not look to the needs of the people. And if they built bridges, it was to tax everyone. Everything they were doing was really an attempt to enrich Rome at the expense of everybody else. Now, this was said among a group of rabbis, and there were people who were listening and were benefiting from this. Unfortunately, even though they took the right care, sometimes Jewish people have a gift of gab. And the word got out that Rabbi Shimon Yochai criticized the Roman government.
Right.
And the next thing we read about in the Talmud is he's running for his life. He knows they're going to kill him because just like in Mother Russia, you never criticize Russia. Remember that gentleman who's now in trouble, Mr. Navloni, I believe?
Mhm.
You don't criticize Iran either. That's why they're killing their wrestlers. So you don't want to be overheard, and you want to be careful of who you speak to, because the person who accidentally made this comment to discuss what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said got him into so much trouble. And for 13 years, Rabbi Shimon Yochai was in hiding in a cave, and you know the story with his son and how they stayed alive for 13 years in a cave. So that's the point is if you have something to say and it's worthwhile saying, be careful that you're never overheard. or be careful you don't say anything to a yenta. And by yenta, I mean anybody who has a gift of gab, who likes to talk about things, because sometimes the things they repeat can be very, very destructive. So King Solomon is giving us the wisdom of his knowledge that even if you have something to say that's important, be careful, because what do we say in English? The birds have, anyone remember what's the expression? The birds have ears, or the walls have ears?
Yeah,
Walls have ears.
walls have ears, yeah.
The walls have ears. This is coming right here from King Solomon. This is what he wants us to do.
He's very right, because once we go to Tannersville in upstate New York for 3 months in the summer, and one year I left something very important at home, and I asked somebody to send it to me. Next thing I knew, about 5, 6 people knew about me leaving this important document at home. So you're right. You gotta be careful what you say to who you say it to.
Right, but first be careful that no one can overhear you. As we know, people sometimes have little listening devices. You know, if they think that you know something, or the government doesn't trust you, or whatever, so they look for you to do that. But be careful that whoever you share a confidence with, be very careful that that person doesn't have the gift of gab, because and you know that happened in America in the 50s, right? Under Joe McCarthy,
Yeah.
right? He was, if you were Jewish, that you were losing your job left and right. It was a terrible, terrible time. But this is something that we've had to deal with. So the next time we'll go a little further. We'll start chapter 11 in Ecclesiastes, and then a week later we'll go back to Proverbs, Kohelet. And I want you to think about this one where it says, "Send your bread upon the waters, for after many days you will find it." Okay, think about what that could possibly mean. I think it's not necessarily throwing bread in the water, but I think there's a very important concept involved here, and which really will be found in our Jewish history. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you for making your observations. I think I needed to hear something from you, because without that, I don't know at what level I should present this material. So so thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And again, if you see me in the hallway or walking, please feel free to stop me and and ask me or challenge me. I'm happy to do that. Okay, and again, I'd like to say to the person who drank the 5 cups, the Chamishi, I have a poor screen, so now what a handsome guy you turned out to be, Chamishi. All right, so have a good afternoon, everybody, and hope to see you next week. All right.
Okay.
Sei gesund.
Keep safe.
Okay.
Sei gesund.
Sei
Okay.
gesund. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.